Today we're going to be looking at the assessment in Eco Risk Projector. So we're going to start by going into a model or creating a new model. You can give it a name and other metadata. You're then going to want to select a plugin, for example, Ambassador's Glassfish. You then have your parameters. So we have a video talking about these. These are model specific. You then have an assessment section. Now assessment is generic and comes up on almost every model where it is applicable, and it will be generally the same but with slight differences depending on the results that a model generates. In the case of Ambassador's Glassfish, it returns daily binary success, so 1 or 0 for every day if we had success based on the model parameters or not. So in this case, we then need some way of going from a daily binary result to a generic yearly result, and then a temporal result, so across years, and then finally a spatial result for the purposes of visualization in the Explore page. So in this case, ultimately we need to create a temporal and we need to create a spatial result based on the temporal. So in the case of Ambassadors, which produces daily binary, we first need to go from daily binary to yearly binary, and then we need to go from yearly binary to temporal or across years, and then from temporal to spatial. So every single model with an assessment section will have an across years and a spatial section. However, this part here will vary depending on perhaps the model already produces a yearly binary result, in which case we don't need anything, we can go straight to temporal, or maybe it produces a daily continuous result, so this is going to look a bit different. We're not counting daily successes, but instead converting a daily value into a binary and then into a, using this to get a yearly result. So for example here, Ambassadors, we've got daily binary. We would go ahead and say, okay, well, we have annual success. We can define the year, so what month it starts in. So the default is January. You can change this to whatever. And in the same way that parameters apply to your location, assessment that you set here will apply to your location as well. It will be overwritten. And then in your location, you can provide location-specific assessment results as well. So if you had a location where actually you need 10 daily successes to consider an annual success, well, you can specify that at the individual location within the location settings tab. For more information on location specific parameters, see the location specific parameter video. So yeah, in the case of Ambassadors, we could say, okay, we need 10 daily successes. Let's just say, okay, we need 5 daily successes. So annual success in year starting January, so just that calendar year, and we need greater than equal to 5 daily successes. So, we need to have 5 or more successes. You could also say, we need less than 5. So for example, in a model where, basically what it's modeling is, the inverse of what you might want. For example, if it's growth, you might say actually, it would look a bit different because that wouldn't be binary, but you can, you have the option here. And then when you get to temporal or across years, you're going to say, okay, temporal success if sum of annual successes across 1 to 10 years is greater than 1. So in this case, the sum of successes across 1 year is greater than equal to 1, means that it's a temporal success if it's an annual success, and if it's not an annual success, it's not a temporal success. So this is a direct mapping of annual to temporal, because basically just look at this 1 year, and as long as we have 1 success, that's good. So if we didn't have 1 success, that would be not good. However, you might say, we need 1 success in 3 years. So there you go. The number of successes across 3 years is greater than equal to 1. So we need at least 1 success every 3 years for temporal success. You might say 2. So we need 2 in 3 years to be successful, etc. The default is just a direct mapping between yearly and temporal, but that gives you the option to expand if it's relevant for your use case in the model you're applying. So then we have spatial. So spatial is the way of looking at simultaneous failures across the landscape. And what this does is once we've computed our temporal result, so every single year for every single location, is 1 or 0, success or failure, we then want to look at the percent of locations that have a failure at the same time, so in the same year. So here the default is that if greater than or equal to 50% of locations have a failure in a year, that is a high risk year. Okay, so if more than 50% of the locations fail in a year, that's high risk. And then we've specified low is less than or equal to 20. And so anywhere between 20 and 50 then would be a moderate risk. So this spatial is applied to the temporal result. So this is important if you say, well, actually, as long as we have 2 and 3 years are successful, so, even 3 years, 2, then that's cool. And then that'll use this result to apply spatial. If you don't really care about anything temporally and it's just in every single individual year, you want to look at it separately, just leave it on the default of, looking for 1 success in 1 year, and you can effectively cut out any sort of temporal component and just look at year on year, what is the success or failure and what is the spatial impact. If we have a look at a different model, so for example, Australian bass, we can see this is the same. This default value is different in Australian, in terms of Australian bass. We are especially concerned with basically, we don't need as frequent, but 1 in 6 years is enough to consider a success. So, but it's the same idea of this is a daily binary result that we then go to yearly, that we then go to temporal, and then we can calculate spatial. If we look at banana prawn growth, this will be different. So there you go, this is a daily continuous. So every day has a value, growth, and we need to give some way of saying, well, what growth value is enough to say success or not success? And this is a great example of where you might say, well, I don't want growth. So if we have less than equal to, some threshold, let's say 10, well, that's good. But if we have more than that, that's too much. You can also use the median. So that's the default is, any day with a value greater than equal to the median is successful, otherwise it's unsuccessful. But of course you override it here, and then you can go ahead and override it at each individual location as well if you would like to. And then the yearly success, temporal success, and spatial success is the same after this. So I think that gives a good overview of assessment in Eco Risk Projector. See the explore page video for more information on how the assessment results are visualized and what that looks like. But for the time being, this should give you a good overview of how assessment works and how to set up assessment for your specific case.